Alright, welcome back to our next episode of Terra Invicta, and we are making the burn to Jupiter. I see no reason to delay here, considering that we really don't need all that KPS at the other end. We can refuel once we get there, once we get the station going, so the question is, do I want to save 200 KPS? You know what, just for a little bit of safety, I'll put a little bit more KPS in the tank. But Task Force Voyager, for the moment, which will become Defense Force Jupiter as soon as we get there, is composed of 4 Oxford-class dreadnoughts, which obviously will be renamed after famous universities once they enter battle, and the Voyager-class cruisers. Bon chance. I'll also remark that our MC situation is looking worse, but our resources looking much better as a bunch of colony habs started coming up. Oh look, we've captured a live griffin. That must mean that our marines have landed and taken out another base. There we are, alien base, Silver Fortress base at Solvi Voltec at 1172 Aeneas has been destroyed. Again, the resources you get from destroying bases with marines, very, very limited, but the intelligence value is extreme. Oh, look, the United States of America has declared war on Mali. I bet that's because someone bad is in charge of it. Anyway, that means MG02 has completed their mission and can book it for planet Earth. No reason to wait around. If they have some spare time this episode, after as many alien mining bases as possible are eliminated, before the aliens can build more monitors at those locations, then we'll start cleaning up things like protectorate stations and servant stations around planet Earth. So let's just, there we are. Are they doing their burn? Yep, they're on their way. Fantastic. And we can do the Griffin interrogation, which we will do because for the sake of completeness, but at the moment I'm going to focus on the tech that we can get that reduces the MC cost of our fleets by a fantastic 15%. Great, that's Kenya. So Kenya can now be folded into the African Union because it's authoritarian. So let us arrange for a... Actually, no, we'll do it with India. Because India is the one who loves getting... India loves getting the boost to its cohesion from declaring a short and victorious war, and they are all short and victorious, despite the fact that, you know, the Indian army is pretty low tech, but it sure is big and it has lots of navies, so it is up to the task. Okay, Jay.
Standing by.
Where is this remaining xenoform? Xenoform Alpha 19. How about you go and investigate Alpha 19? And let's go see if... Let's just quickly check. Nope, no orgs. Just five sets. Okay, I think they're getting paranoid if they've got 5 sets of salamander shock troops. Fantastic. All right, we've caused them to be paranoid. That is understandable. Rhea can arrange for the declaration of war, and I can order the rest of my councillors appropriately. Like I said, it's not a very academy tactic, but declaring a couple of wars did push India up to 5.7 cohesion, despite the fact that its rest value is 0, and this has caused scientific output to crest 10,000 for the first time. I actually think, yeah, it is. Our national output is now greater than our output from HABs. If that is not a validation of the superstate strategy and what you can do with a big enough population, once you have built up the economy and the knowledge and the democracy and the cohesion to boot, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. And we're crushing the servant public opinion. So really, Pan-Asia, pretty freaking awesome. And here we have the first attempted alien counterattack. It's a corvette, 2 corvettes, a gunship, 3 corvettes, a gunship, a destroyer, and a dreadnought. 2k combined combat power, and a lot of that is firepower. And they're heading from one of our less defended stations around Earth. So what we're going to do, they're going to arrive at Shakespeare Station soon. We will take the Earth Defense Force, which consists of 3 dreadnoughts. We will redeploy it to Shakespeare Station, and we will be waiting for them when they arrive in a month and a bit. With 3 dreadnoughts as well as the station's defences, I have no doubt that we'll wipe the floor with them. But as you can see, the AI is learning, it groups up its forces, it goes after soft targets. What I think it needs to get better at is understanding that if you have a response fleet in system, that should be counted against the defensive capacity of a station. Really, if they combined, they've got about 3 or 4, actually they might have more, they have like 5 or 6 of these 2k response fleets. If they grouped all of them together, then I would have trouble, but as for the moment, I think we're going to be able to counter this first one. Of course, the aliens will eventually learn their lesson. Once they start rolling out plasma and lasers, we're in a little more trouble, but that's the whole point of this strat. We're going to try and deal with them as much as possible before they figure that out and start fielding their later generation vessels. Victor 122 is on its way into Mercury, but I'm pretty sure Task Force Mercury is intercepting. There, they'll catch them on 15 February, so we're okay. The dreadnoughts are on their way. So the defense fleets are going to be busy poking at aliens. We've definitely stirred up a hornet's nest, but I'm confident our defenses will hold. You may have noticed, by the way, that I was spending an awful lot of ops on those operations against the Hydra, so I need a greater monthly income, so I've started putting a whole bunch of marine bases on Mars. Now, firstly, this cannot possibly end badly, because stationing a whole bunch of marines on Mars can only end in good things in every story I've ever read. But I'm actually thinking I'm going to do more of it. Establishing a whole bunch of these Marine Battalion barracks also increases the population of Mars, which at the moment is already up to 23,300. If we get this to 50,000, then we can start putting hotels and all sorts of other influence stations in orbit. We get closer to Mars being, you know, a self-sustaining sort of population center of its own. 50,000 is a pretty good number. So if we're building more marine bases, obviously, lots of marines. Forcing military personnel to deploy somewhere is a great way to drive up the population levels. It generates a whole bunch of ops income, which we're going to happily spend, and we'll get the achievement, hopefully, for pushing I'm not sure if it's an achievement or not, but we'll push the population north of 50,000, which I'm kind of looking forward to. So I might actually send some Marines out to Mars at some point to clean up, at the very least, the Protectorate base, and maybe Garibaldi Station. The Protectorate's not allowed to have nice things after all, because they're dickheads. But before they engage in vanity projects on Mars, the Marines are first needed at another alien base in the asteroid belt. So 52872 Okrio parking orbit is their next destination for the Heisenberg and the Al-Zawahiri. The Marines need to go introduce themselves to yet another alien mining facility. By my count, the Hydra are down to 1, 2, 3 in their home center, so we can't knock those out. Ceres is surrounded by motherships, but maybe possible. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 potential targets. We're definitely knocking them back a bit. We've destroyed something like 6 or 7 bases at this point. That's getting close to half of what they have operational, so if we can keep up the tempo, we should put a bit of a dash against their economy, which is the whole point. I like how originally I was like, yeah, the Oxford's a temporary design, I'm not going to build many of them. I've just built 6 more at Mercury, I'm sending them to Earth, because I'd be more comfortable if there were more ships there available to send either to Jupiter or to hold around Earth or head to Saturn. There are so many things I want to be doing at the same time that I'm like, I need more primary, ships of the line. And so here they are. I'm not sure I'm going to go straight into the production of 6 more, though. My resources are starting to bleed, particularly nobles and volatiles are starting to bleed a little bit. But we will see. I could definitely produce another round of ships of the line. I'm just wondering whether or not I want to wait for the next upgrade package. What are we looking at in terms of fleet strength? 12,000 Academy strength against 42,000 alien strength. So they're increasing faster than we are, but I reckon I can win some fights. So what we're really going to need to do is bring together enough dreadnoughts of this kind that we can successfully engage enemy stations. So perhaps I bite the bullet, and maybe I do immediately put 6 more into construction around Mercury. I think I do. Because if I build an assault group out of 12 dreadnoughts, or maybe even more, that can probably handle stations with relatively limited casualties and let me start pushing out the aliens, for example, out of the Jovian subsystem. The problem here is this volatile expenditure is pretty high, but I'm maybe if I do task... I'm building a third set of Marines now. If I go take other people's mining bases, I should be in a good position. 326 mission control of 433, that's good. I think I've got some more command centers still in construction as well, and I'll get more on Earth. If I get this number up to about 600, I reckon I'm in a good position to start muscling the aliens. But modulating the rate at which I do that is significant, because while you're producing those command centers, they chew up an awful lot of resources until your agriculture facilities complete. Alright, that's enough babbling. Alpha 31 can go to Earth, rally, and then we can decide what front we deploy them to, while the other battle fleets continue their work. Well, I had a spare moment around Earth, so these guys gotta go. I will bid 80 KPS against their 9.7 and auto-resolve that. Operational, there we are, victory for the Academy. Just cleaning up the Protectorate's ships will just make me feel a little bit better, and when the Marines are finished, we can clean them up around Mars and Earth. It's about time. Alright, our fleet has made it to Io, which means we're going to found a platform. There we are, that is going to be our station of choice. Let's have a quick look at the station. It's founding a fusion pile and a construction module. What we want is another fusion pile and a space dock. Even if it's not a fantastic space dock, it's something. And the fleet is docked there. What the fleet can also do, we won't immediately found another one. I think what we'll do is undock. Split the fleet. So let's just split the fleet so the Shishen is its own ship. Task Force Voyager can dock with the station. And Alpha 32 can survey Io. You know, just in case we want to actually start planting bases down there in order to secure our position. So there we are, that's our starting base in the Jupiter system. There are fleets around Callisto, Victor 17, 18, and 39. As soon as we have a refueling base, we're probably going to go and pick off any that aren't docked at the base. But until then, I just want to make sure that our platform goes up and has time to establish its defenses. We are out of ops. That is a failure of planning on my part, but I will fix it. Oh, and I was about to hit the stop recording point, but I have missed a fleet entering Mercury space. But I'm pretty sure Horace Mann Station with 2 layered arrays should be a match for a destroyer and 2 corvettes. We'll see. Battlefleet Mercury was on station, should have been able to deal with this, but unfortunately got distracted. By which I mean the Admiral is an idiot and didn't notice that this particular incoming needed to be dealt with. Plasma's going out. I'm more concerned with the ability of the point defense to handle all these missiles. So far, the PD's holding up relatively well. It gets really nerve-wracking, and then you get within phaser PD range and everything seems okay again. Alright, we've handled the missile swarm, so we should be okay now. It's not quick to kill them with plasma, but as they drift in, we should be able to engage and destroy. There we are. Fantastic. Layered defenses are really powerful. They're more powerful once you put max level weapons on them. So there we are. The station was able to successfully defend itself, 1.7 exotics in the bank, and Battlefleet Mercury got to stay home the whole time. Lazy buggers. And we're going to immediately follow it up with another engagement. Victor 94 has reached Shakespeare Station, defended by 3 of our dreadnoughts. Neither side chooses to engage, while clearly they're a little bit freaked out by our combat power. But that's okay, because DF Earth, Defense Force Earth, can immediately engage. They'll decline this one too, that's fine. And then Defense Force Earth can immediately engage Victor. Oh, it's confused because they're at the station that it's at. Fantastic. Alright, so what we'll need to do, I think... what I'll need to do is undock. And if I undock, I should then be able to engage. Where are they, by the way? They got to be close. There they are. We're just sort of staring each other down. All right, undock and go engage. Scratch that. They're running for home, and we don't have the acceleration to catch them, which is another reason why I need my bloody antimatter spikers. Plus those Daedalus torch engines if the scientists ever want to get around to it. Ah, well, that could have been fun. I should have actually left the ships away from Shakespeare and engaged by itself, but I'm pretty sure the station would have died to that much firepower, and I didn't want to lose Shakespeare Station. In any case, we will continue with where we left off on planet Earth and hope the aliens give us more fleet engagements like the one we were just denied. Alright, so our Marines have finished building on Mars, pushing the population up to 35,000. So we're getting much closer to that magic number. We'll just check whether that means that any of these bases are now significantly negative on water or volatiles. This one is because it's still waiting for its power generators. Those are finishing next month. And the station in orbit, which is very, very unfinished. Okay, fantastic. If we take a few more sites from other people, particularly this one, we probably will take the initiative site as well, stuff them full of Marines. We'll get closer and closer and closer to this 50,000. I really want to hit that 50,000 marker, and I'm pretty sure it only counts people who live on the surface, not people who live in habitats in orbit. In terms of research, we have done a whole bunch of utopic stuff, and now we're taking a brief diversion to do more politics and computing. We are working on designer life forms, and I'm pretty sure India should by now have hit the magic. Yeah, India's hit 45,596 GDP per capita, giving it a GDP of $214 trillion. Not bad. What we need to do now is fix the welfare problem for this to be a utopia. So we're going to temporarily reduce economy spending down to just one node. We're going to keep the knowledge spending to keep democratizing. 9.2 is okay, we can do better. We're going to cut the unity over here and go to 67% welfare because I want to drag this number way down. Now that people have got a reasonable amount of money to go around, we have to make sure it's fairly distributed. So we'll bring this down to a low level of inequality, which should also decrease the resting unrest and increase the resting cohesion. Yes, it's a bloody big place, but you know, we're going to do what we can. The caliphate isn't as good yet. We're still working on this democracy value, but the more development points we can get it, the better, and absorbing Turkey should give it a few more investment points, as will absorbing the African Union and disbanding some extra armies. So basically, the more we consolidate, the faster we're going to be able to drive this democracy value up. Then we might even pause from democracy in order to get the economy pushed up, then democracy, then probably inequality last. But we're definitely making progress. I think Burkina Faso is next on the agenda. We are moving into the totalitarian hellscape of Sudan to join it in, but basically African unification is not that far away. Alright, there's our beautiful scan of Io, which means as soon as the construction module finishes in orbit, we can start laying down stations. Alpha 32, however, no rest for the wicked. The aliens are at Ganymede, but there's no reason to not go scan, for example, Europa. We're just going to get a little bit of intelligence on the way this system functions, and then maybe send another scout ship out. In fact, I may even do that now, detaching the Voyager itself. TF Voyager. TF Voyager no longer includes Voyager, it's about to become Defense Fleet Jupiter. You can head to Saturn and make a start around Titan. Yeah, that's more than enough. That's more than enough KPS in reserve. Off you go. Make a scan. So we have intelligence on the Saturn subsystem. Well, I don't think I've ever seen this technology before. Is this an academy only? Global arms control regime. All nations' investment in military, build army, and build navy gets negative 10%. That's bizarre. Very academy. I'm going to research that. That's very academy. Absolutely going to do that. Also, we have merged in Turkey. Some problems with xenoforming, so we're going to need to unleash a councillor on that. Jay has missed like his 6th or 7th detain attempt, so we are just following this Hydra around. But Bonza Bunny here makes sure that Jay never gets killed on failure, which is always a good thing. We're about to move into Burkina Faso, which I believe we are now, or are about to be. Middle Guinea and Burkina Faso are on the agenda. And then I think it's time for the African Union to be absorbed into the Caliphate. Happy days. Syria is obviously going to bother some people, so don't worry, I will clean that up soon as well. But we're getting there. Looking good. Nope, yet more failure. I'm beginning to be convinced that there's a part of the academy somewhere that does research into like domestic security against the Hydra, and they figure if there are no more Hydra on Earth, they're going to lose their funding or something. Like, Jay's good, but he's no Max, and his failure here is just confounding me. I think that was like his 10th or 11th attempt. But we will get there. I just don't like having 2 councillors tied up every turn, chasing this xenoform around the world. And again, another weird, is this Academy Tech? Minus 50% investment in nuclear weapons. Very strange. I'm going to grab that one too, because I don't want anyone building nukes. But I don't remember, people remind me, I don't think when we were playing Humanity First, we got any arms control or arms limitation technologies. I'm very confident that wasn't a thing. So thank you, game, and thank you, designers, for serving me up an opportunity to make the world a better place when playing the Academy. I genuinely appreciate that. Now, if only there was one that allowed me to ban or get even more reductions on nuclear weapons, that would be even better, because I don't think an assault carrier is ever going to land again. But I'm also not going to build space defenses everywhere, because I'm too busy, providing welfare. In about a year, we should have fixed inequality for 4.7 billion people, which is not bad. Also, the population is changing. Estimated growth 0.6% annually. Oh, we can do better than that. We can do better than that. Although I guess it's sustainable for the planet. But 0.6% growth, yeah, it's respectable. Awesome. Good progress. Finally, Jay, finally. So that means Earth should now be clean of Hydra. If we can keep the space controlled, there should be no more enthralling, no more xenoforming, no more nothing. No more terror missions. Earth is now clear of invaders, which is exactly the position you want to start negotiations from. Let's check our update on our objectives. We control 76% of the Earth's population, so we're doing okay. We've got 6.7 billion people of 9.1 billion. We have 20% of fleet power in the system. The aliens outnumber us 4-1. That's okay. We're making progress. We're going to need to massively scale the economy in order to compete with them, but that's what the Jupiter system is for. And then we control 31% of the Earth CP cap. We're going to need 70-something percent. Well, look, let's consolidate Asia and Africa, and then let's go to South America. So as with many games that feature both a tactical and strategic layer, I feel like the game is more often won on the strategic layer than the tactical layer. So for example, you can be very, very good at flying ships, and it helps. Being able to score massive kill-death ratios with your fleets is important, but the strategy of using those fleets is important as well. So what I'm doing right now, which I would strongly advocate for, is once you push the aliens into total war mode, be aggressive in going out and hunting down small alien fleets, because if you're fighting a bunch of these engagements constantly, then you will overcome the massive shipbuilding capacity the aliens will throw at you the moment they go to full war mode. If I repeat this and destroy maybe 30, 40 ships in a 6-month period, which is not unheard of, then I'm going to prevent this number here from going completely out of control. They're up to 109 ships at this point. If you don't trim them, then they get out of control. And that's how people get 80, 90, 100, 100k plus alien fleet strength easy. And yes, you can deal with that somewhat by building much better ships and scaling your own economy, but I would rather keep the aliens under control. So let's go destroy alien fleet Victor 39, which was the one that is not docked at the base. We're leaving the ones that are docked behind their defensive arrays. Instead, we're going after these frigates. Nothing particularly fancy, but it is 708 combat power that will shortly no longer exist. We will go short wall, centered, we will engage, we will burn them out, and we will fight. This fleet combines plasma battleships and plasma dreadnoughts, so it's nice and simple. We'll pull our radiators in because we have heat sinks, and we have just heaps of long-range plasma firepower and a lot of forward-facing phases to deal with incoming missiles. So really, this isn't a problem. With enough plasma, as you can see, the relatively low damage doesn't matter. Instead, what you get is guaranteed damage on demand, basically. Phasers should be able to deal with those missiles just fine. That's beautiful. Fantastic, and we'll just deal with the next frigate. I could burn the engines a little bit, but let's just drift into them. Gun them down. Complete firing line. Looks like they've got one... okay, so they've started deploying a little bit of plasma. So the aliens will do this. At the start of the game, it's all mags and missiles most of the time, I found. It's once they start identifying your ships can't be hurt by that, they start introducing plasma and lasers to a greater extent. But usually not to enough extent or quickly enough that you can't overcome them if you muscle them, immediately. Having destroyed that fleet, we can now drop Marines on this base at Callisto. Aegea Crater. We can eliminate that, at which point it will only be the station, Stalwart Warden, that needs to be cleared out. Now, I would really like to settle on Callisto, but Io is going to be our first one. Ganymede would also be very valuable to be able to get, but let's destroy the base on Callisto first. Let's also check whether or not we've got a whole bunch of incoming to Jupiter. Rallying with Victor 123, rallying with Victor 123. Victor 123 is going to Loma. Okay, so they're putting together a small task force that's going to lots of rallying with Victor 123. And then there's Victor 111, 2 battleships going to Earth. Victor 130 rallying. Okay, so at least they're grouping up a lot more. LEO in 3rd August. Victor 112, 5th August. So it actually looks like our defense fleets around Earth and Mars are actually going to be reasonably busy. Got a couple of arrivals due for Mercury in about a week, a bit more than a week. So defense forces around Mercury should be ready for that. But yeah, we're going to stay active, and the key is, because we're relying on defensive fleets this time around rather than space defenses, we need to be a little bit more proactive in the inner solar system. But we also haven't set up the lightning rod that attracts them to Jupiter yet, which would be, I think last time the lightning rod that attracted them was dropping a base on the same place that they had a holding, on Callisto. I also don't think the aliens like you being settled properly in the outer solar system. At the moment, we just have this tiny little dinky orbital around this area. It's going to be a little bit of time still. It's until July when it finishes the ring core. Construction module doesn't finish until September. That's when we can start spamming bases all throughout the Jovian subsystem. But for the moment, let's send the Marines. Another source of alien attrition is likely to be your layered defense arrays. This is because I believe the AI evaluates whether it can take a station based on combat value. This means it dramatically overvalues how powerful defenses are in the early game when you have pretty shitty weapons, and undervalues how good defense arrays are once you have a decent weapons array associated with them. Once I've got pretty good kit, these LDAs are pretty capable of dealing with a moderately sized fleet. I might lose one of them here, maybe to a neutralization, but the missile arrays are now empty, and it looks like even the damaged array is still engaging with some of its weapons. Meanwhile, with enough plasma to reach out and touch someone, but most importantly, the top tier phases and the phaser PD, we can engage an awful lot of incoming successfully, and then once they drift close, well, the phasers just murder them. Where is the destroyer? The destroyer doesn't look like it's taken down. Yeah, okay, so the destroyer is likely to still be able to maneuver. The question is, can the plasma kill it from their position? Okay, ultraviolet phasers have engaged that one, so now it's just a question of, can plasma kill the sacred vision before it leaves? It is trying to disengage. I think we should get a kill before it drifts out of range. There we are, just. That was about to drift out of range. And the damage to that LDA should repair itself after battle, so we're in a good position. There we are, chalk up another 4 ships. And again, the trick here is you don't put so much layered defense on a station the aliens never attack it. If they think they can't win, they will never assault it with anything short of a Mothership Doom fleet. And Mothership Doom fleets with plasma are one of the few things out there that can really effectively pick apart your stations. Like nose-mounted plasma, huge damage output, fleet to surround them to provide PD. They can demolish your stations. Same way I use Titans to pick apart stations. But there you go. One of our stations around Earth has just chalked up 4 additional kills. Now, I still expect the alien fleet is going to be stronger than it was a moment ago. But we've knocked it, just down back below 40k, You just need constant casualties. Constantly inflicting casualties on the aliens while you pick apart their mining infrastructure. And eventually you will be able to tire them out. And here we have a much fairer fight that will require at least some maneuvering on my part. Let's go, I'm going to go short wall centered. We're going to have to bring our guys in as tightly as possible, and we're going to have to check the weapons. Interestingly, we do have a bunch of violet laser cannons on the small gunships. So the gunships are actually probably the priority for destruction. The frigate's got a 256 centimeter violet laser as well. So actually, not allowing them to get too close is probably a good thing. So we're going to have to hope that our plasma is enough to kill them on the way in. Because the issue is at very close range, those laser arrays are going to start eating through our armor much more effectively than they will at range. The aliens still don't think that they're going to win because they've got a combat power disadvantage, but we've got the Delta V, so we will start the battle and engage. Looks like they've gone in sort of this wall formation. So what I'm going to try and do briefly, although I can't turn for very long, that's the problem. So we're just going to bring ourselves around something like this. And hope that the lasers don't breach our side armor in time. That should still, I might have to angle that down a little bit. And rotate that towards the enemy, like that. But at least that puts him on the downward, a very slight downward trajectory and gets him closer to the aliens. They've also spawned very close, which I'm also surprised by. I'm kind of considering aborting, given how close that they have spawned. Like, let's just have a quick check here. Yeah, we're going to, no, we can't maneuver. We can't maneuver. We can't maneuver because they've spawned so close that we're going to be engaging immediately. We have a 1000k range, so we're going to have to just head on this. I would love to maneuver, but the aliens get to pick the engagement range, I believe, in this scenario, and they have chosen to engage at a close distance. So I'm going to clear the priority target, and my ships can engage whatever on Earth they want. Their starburst pattern is great for evading coil guns. Like this insanity that you see the AI do, this is because they don't want to get hit by coil guns. I don't have coil guns. I have plasma. Now what I would like to do, ideally, if I was allowed to priority target, is hit people like Autumn Dawn, these little gunships. Looks like we're targeting one of the gunships. That's good. Because they're pretty soft and weak, but if they get close range, those lasers will tear us up. Alright, so that's one of them down. Plasma away. So, and if you've forgotten, our firepower is 2 heavy Mark III plasma batteries per Dreadnought. Mark II batteries would work perfectly well. And heavy plasma is fine because you don't need the sheer number coming in order to break through PD the way you would with like coils. And then the nose-mounted phasers, which are doing tickle damage at the moment, but really are mostly here for this missile array. Watching our heat, we are fine. Let's bring our radiators in case we take any laser hits. Phasers are mostly doing the job on the incoming missiles. And then once that thing's getting close, we are unfortunately in trouble. Relying on our armor now. Okay, one of our ships is down. Emissary. And that's what I said about how the next generation probably needs a little more PD potential. Because a casualty there is painful. Losing a Dreadnought is always painful. But we do win. That missile salvo was just too much. And I think a great validation, like 18 exotics, like completely worth it, and a little bit of antimatter. Like this is fantastic, right? This is a good battle, except for the fact that we lost a dreadnought of Defense Force Earth. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 enemy vessels destroyed. Combat power reduced down to 38,000. So we'll get the Defense Force Earth back to the shipyards. It does validate the idea, though, that there may not be enough point defense potential on each individual one of these ships, and they might need a support laser boat, probably, with 60 centimeter greens and nose phasers and some PD, just in order to augment the force. Otherwise, a sufficiently large missile swarm like that one is basically going to doom at least one dreadnought. Either way, the other option. Let me just think about this for a moment. This is not a full ship design, this is just me thinking out loud. The other option is we have unlocked Titans now. And what Titans would allow us to do would be to swap to something like that. Sorry. But I actually think that's worse. I mean, you could still pick sit nose phasers here, but that's just like horrendous overkill as far as I'm concerned. So I'm actually not convinced the Titan is a better design than the Dreadnoughts in this case, because I don't think the nose plasmas are that much better than the hull plasmas. So it's 23 damage, engaging at 800 kilometers. Only the big nose one actually engages at maximum distance. Cooldown is 32 seconds, damage is 23. Cooldown is 50 seconds, damage is 30.6. That's a long cooldown, especially since I'm pretty sure you just right click to get these detailed numbers, by the way. Yeah. So it's better to have a bigger hit than a smaller hit, but at the same time, the heavy plasma battery that does half the damage is firing like more than twice as quickly at the same range. So I actually might stick with Dreadnoughts. I just need to find a solution to the point defense problem without massively reducing their firepower, which, you know, is a decent problem to have. What's my ship construction looking like at the moment? Alright, so Mercury is about to finish a run and an upgrade run. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more Dreadnoughts coming out of Mercury that are going to go to Jupiter for the ball that's going to start throwing the aliens out of Jupiter. So that's fantastic. It'll take them a while to get there, but still that's where the shipyards are. We don't have any shipyards at Jupiter at the moment. And then around Terra, we've got 2 upgrade cycles going for some Flight 2 Oxfords, which are the upgrades to use antimatter spikers. And that's about it. So we can produce more ships at Earth. The question is, do I want to just produce more Oxford Flight 2s, or do I want to introduce something with a little more PD potential? That is the question. See, the problem is, a lot of what I'm going to be engaging next, it's going to be stations. Stations, motherships, stuff like that. I do feel like I would benefit from introducing a higher density of protective firepower. The question is just how to do it. Alright, so at the moment what I'll do is I'll add these ships to the construction queue, and then once these upgrades are done, I'll consider introducing an escort ship to go along with them. That's probably what I will do. And I could probably use more marine ships. I've got 3 squads of them right now. Always handy to have a few more, and maybe an extra Voyager to maybe head out to some of the other objects that we are unlocking, maybe Neptune, for example, to give them a little bit of a scan as well. Now, a property litigation team of experts in property law within the solar system and beyond the bounds of Earth has arrived at Mars orbit rather, in order to negotiate for ownership of some of these facilities. In particular, I'm thinking Cabot Base, which is currently owned by the Initiative, who we are now at war with. We've gotten to the point now where we're so powerful that most factions just, they won't take a reasonable amount of bribes anymore. I'd have to offer like 3 or 4 technologies just to get generous, and I'd have to repeat that a couple of times to make up for it. So really at this point, the only people I'm trying to be peaceful with are Exodus, the Resistance. Humanity First might even be beyond saving, but at the moment they're nuclear deterred. I would have liked to stay friendly with Humanity First. I'm not attacking them. I'm hoping that they bleed off some hatred over time. But the initiative, this base has a little bit of water, a little bit of volatiles, a little bit of base metals, and we've got the MC cap to take it. So let's send our legal team down to have a discussion about the ownership of this particular facility. Alright, our negotiations have been successful. Let's go take a look at Cabot Base. It's pretty minimalist, but it is producing a decent amount of resources now that we've applied our bonuses to the whole thing. What is this base going to need? Well, it's going to need some upgrades in terms of power generation. So let's give it 2 fusion reactor farms. Let's give it an agriculture complex, which can sit here. Let's give it 2 LDAs. And the rest of this is pretty harmless. I'm not sure I want to waste the time upgrading to a colony mining station, because that's 160 days of no production. What does it increase? We go from 12 to 16. I'm not even sure that's worth the mission control point, let alone the interruption to production, so I'm just going to leave that be for the moment. We should have a little bit of spare power generation on that, so let's throw 1 manufacturing complex on it to compensate for the upkeep. And then, since we've got a little bit of requirements for the nano can pay for some of these marine battalion barracks. Can't quite fit another one in. And then we might come back and do some more construction later, but for the moment that's a nice minimum viable product for the base that we have taken over. It is primarily it's a pretty mixed production base, so I'm happy with that. 100 water, 100 volatiles. The agricultural facility will reduce the upkeeps, because at the moment it's barely producing water and volatiles. It's consuming most of what it produces. But the ag facility, when that goes up, should solve that particular problem, because that's going to offset up to 875 in terms of upkeeps. Fantastic. These tier 1 labs, like, I don't see a reason to demolish them. I don't see a reason to upgrade them for the moment. So we're just going to leave this as is. Good job, Marines. We can have negotiations probably with the Protectorate next. This base is the Cyrus the Great base. Again, not particularly great, but we can take control of it and get it mining. I'm also going to set up a whole bunch of tier 1 mining stations in the Jupiter, the Jovian subsystem, once the construction module finishes. But grabbing these is perfectly harmless, and it takes away from the Protectorate space economy. Geez, that Callisto's got some nice noble sites. That's pretty promising. Victor 162 and Stalwart Warden Station will be demolished once reinforcements arrive for Defence Force Jupiter. But for the moment, Alpha 32 can bail. I think if we found a platform, it's just going to be destroyed. So let's retreat and reload to our lovely base around Io. But those sites, oh wow, look at that, 21, 20. This is nobles for days, and heaps of what I want to stack Callisto. I want to fill Callisto with bases, frankly. So 16 sites. So I need 32 mission control free in order to stack a whole bunch of tier 1 mining stations to get as much yield as possible out of this. Eventually we can upgrade them, but as long as the battle fleet's capable of defending the surface locations, even 1 point defense array just for a little bit of moral support, this will be great. This will be fantastic. And the aliens are learning. Shakespeare Station has just been neutralized. They got there just before Defense Force Earth, and they destroyed the layered defense arrays. They did it by bringing a mixture of lasers and a lot more missiles. So the aliens are absolutely able to overcome those LDAs when they bring the right weapons, which they do. Which is why I'm saying put the pressure on early. But the defense forces arrive before they're able to hit the button to destroy the station. So we'll be able to send in 3 dreadnoughts against what remains. Let's engage. Both fleets are willing to fight. And this is just going to be a game of PD. We will priority target, however, the gunship Cascading Justice. Oh wait, no, it's not close enough. Beaming Magnetar it probably is. We will engage at 1,000 kilometers. Looks like the Ocean Wind is also very badly damaged. But if we can kill the Dreadnought early, that takes firepower off the field. Most of these ships should have their missile tubes completely empty, though, which limits the threat that they pose. They emptied all their missiles at the station, they neutralized the station, and it would have been devastating to lose Shakespeare Station because an awful lot of my Tier 3 xenoscience and other research facilities that are giving bonuses to Earth are around. Although I guess losing xenoscience at this stage of the game doesn't matter as much because there are no Hydra on Earth to detect. But in any case, with all their missile tubes empty and with the damage they suffered, neutralizing the station, they should be easy to clean up. And this is why fleets need to operate in cooperation with stations. You can't always get the intercept off before the enemy can neutralize the station, but if you arrive quickly enough, you can avoid them hitting the button to destroy it. The gunship looks like it's coasting, which is probably why it's... So let's burn engines a little bit. We won't even pull in our radiators, no need. These are Flight 2s. They've got antimatter spikers. Easy done. So yeah, defense fleets in cooperation with fortified stations. Let the enemy assault the station. Even if they neutralize it, you can then move in with the fleet and clean up. As long as you don't lose the station itself. 41i. Alright, so we're now at the point where I can start considering in new production runs switching over to UV nose phases rather than green nose phases. For the longer distance, the longer hitting power, better at intercepting things like heavy magnetic rounds. So Shakespeare Station, 2 destroyed modules where the layered defense arrays used to be. Simple enough. We'll just reconstruct those. We wouldn't want the people hanging out in our geriatrics facilities or our research labs to be threatened, now would we? And our mill-sci labs. There's a little bit of everything on this station, which makes it, you know, a decent money spinner, a decent producer of research, 150% bonus here, 75% there, 120 science, net positive on money. Not a bad station all round. It would have been a real tragedy if the however many thousand crew on board, 3,900 crew had been lost. But they weren't, thanks to the timely intervention of Defence Fleet Earth. Now this is a fantastic event option. Normally you can get like a little bit of science and influence, but no, here we spend a little bit of boost and money. Admittedly we don't have a bunch of money left, but I'm going to spend it anyway for a 5% mining output and a 5% permanent boost to shipbuilding speed. So there we are. We do have stations coming online in December that should give us some more money, but this is starting to get problematic. So we're going to have to start offlining material relatively soon in order to stem the bleeding if this continues. I can still trade with a couple of factions if I need to buy cash, but yeah, we're starting to dip a little low. We can always sell like maybe 2. If we sell 2 units of exotics for 35k, that'll keep us afloat. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe I don't move over from green phases to UV phases and instead use this for the budget. But for the moment, just to stay afloat, I'm going to sell 2 units of exotics, which will balance the books. And there we are with some 2036 Kessler Syndrome. Thus is the folly of war. We'll be able to survive the MC downturn just fine, I think. We've got a good buffer of MC, so we should be able to survive that. Looks like we've got Victor 101 arriving in low Earth orbit. So again, let's do intercepts. I'm doing intercepts at Mars and Earth at the same time, and let's repair the property litigation team, and then they can take over another base, and then maybe they head back to Earth, because I'd like some more stations in orbit, and there's some lovely Servant and Protectorate ones that would look just fine if our litigators are successful during their day in court. Alright, well we can't sit passively forever poking around the edges of the alien power, so I've concentrated 19 warships around Jupiter. So what are we going to do with this assembled firepower? Well, we're going to fly to Callisto, and we're going to engage Victor 162 at the Stalwart Warden Station, and we're going to rip Stalwart Warden Station out of the sky. That will then let us destroy the surface base on Callisto, giving us full control, hopefully, of the Jovian subsystem. At least as long as we can defend it. That will then allow me to split Defense Force Jupiter back into a small defense force designed to hold the Jovian subsystem, and then take a rest of the Wrecking Ball and go and demolish a couple of other stations, just as we did before with our Titans. This time we're doing it with mass dreadnoughts because that's what I've produced, and thus that's what I have available. It's not fast, it's not well, it's very high tech. It's not as high tech as I'd like. But then we can rip them out of some of their other intermediate locations, either going through the asteroid belt, pop, 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 or because our goal was to colonize every major body, which means the moons of Uranus and Neptune as well, well, maybe that's where we go next. But first, let's try out this station. So this is what the Force looks like mid-burn. It's always hard when you play Terra Invicta on the strategy or the Geoscape map to understand there is a real-time full simulation of the solar system out there. And at times, especially when you're deploying large fleets, it can be like quietly beautiful. So they're burning and they're making their interception. Let's zoom in.
Our presence is growing.
Yes, I'm controlling Cote d'Ivoire. Defense Force Mars. Yes, fantastic. The reason I'm researching nukes, by the way, is because they're going to come very handy for certain bases. Scan of Tethys is complete. Fantastic. That was one of our scanning ships that has done the job. Task Force Voyager. Doing its best to evade enemy attention as always. Fly to home plate and refuel. Fantastic. Property litigation team has been repaired, which means they can assault Cyrus the Great Base. Looks like I didn't wait for... There was one more dreadnought coming to reinforce. I could have sent 20 ships against... I could have sent 20 ships against the station rather than 19, but I'm pretty sure 19 will be sufficient. Alright, here we go. Defense Force Jupiter, 11.4k combat power, 19 vessels, engaging the Eternal Storm Frigate and the Stalwart Warden Station. We will center, we will Great Wall, we will be in tight formation, and we will engage. So this should give us a nice, tight, PDable formation with forward-facing phaser arrays responsible for our defense. We're going to drift in to give us the maximum time for our plasmas to engage. We have the range advantage, I believe, with our 1000k engagement range. The only thing they'll be able to fire at longer range is the missiles that are incoming now. Okay, alien ship destroyed. Forward-facing phasers on our various dreadnoughts should be able to handle this without much difficulty. This is where the range of the nose-mounted guns is helpful, because the nose-mounted guns only have to be able to do like 1 damage. There we are. Missiles neutralized. And at 1,000 kilometers, we should start engaging the station itself. The battleships only have an 800 kilometer range, so they won't engage as early as the dreadnoughts do, but you know, that's still useful. Looks like the aliens have their plasma as well, obviously. We'll pull our radiators in to avoid unfortunate radiator damage. Keep an eye on heat levels, but I think we should be fine. We've got a lot of heat sinking capacity on our ships, which is good. And with the meters of armored plate on the front, the death ball should be more than enough to do the job. And then I'll bring the Marines in. The Marines are still waiting around Io. We can bring them in order to neutralize the ground base. I'll just let the fleet blow this station up. We only need the intelligence once, we don't need it twice. Alright, so we took damage to 4 of our vessels, which is fine. Let's get the Marines, MG01. Oh, they're repairing, they'll be ready on the 28th, that's fine. So let's just advance time a little bit so that the Jupiter fleet becomes available to order again. There we are. DF Jupiter returns to operations. Let's destroy HAB. Okay, Stalwart Warden Station has been destroyed. We don't have enough Marines on board because these are the Flight 1s, not the Flight 2s. So they have 1 point of Marines on board instead of 5, which is unfortunate. Well, what we will do is fly back to Homeplate IO, just patch up the damage and the fuel, and then we'll consider where the fleet moves on to next. Although before we do we want to put a... Do I want to put a platform in orbit? Yeah, I think I do. And then what we'll do is we'll transfer back to Homeplate IO. And what we'll do with the station that we've created is we'll just add an extra fusion pile and a little point defense array, and that will be our construction module, hopefully going up around Callisto. All right, awesome. Oh, nice. And our asteroid mining base is back online, which means we're back to 348 nobles a month. We've burned through about 3/4 of the pre-war noble stockpile at this point, but we've built a pretty impressive fleet doing it. Like, we can now reliably win battles against alien stations and moderately sized alien fleets, and I don't think they've put together a death ball big enough to threaten me yet. So as long as I'm destroying stations and ground bases at a rapid enough clip, I should be in good shape. Good job. All right, I'm liking the designs. I'm liking the outcomes. I've got my super. I'm back to 0 antimatter production because I'm upgrading upgrading 2 super colliders around Jupiter. The money situation is obviously bad, but once the super colliders come online, I can make up for that with the sale of antimatter. So I may even produce a 3rd antimatter production station and some more command facilities around Mercury just to give me the buffer, except the fact that we're going to go massive negative on the economy, despite the income that we're bringing in from nations on Earth, 44.8 from councillors, 44.9 from nations. Accept that and just lean into deficit spending. I think that's the way we go next. We're almost finished the African Union. It'll be Côte d'Ivoire this turn. I'm almost finished securing Brazil, which will then federate with Bolivia and start the countdown to unification, because we're going to need the Brazilian armies in order to give this a sense of strategic autonomy if it's going to be able to declare war. Although we could declare war using its allies, it feels more genuine if it's Brazilian troops that are being used. Where's your headquarters? Your headquarters is down there. What are you doing up here? Anyway, we'll roll you back. Is it because you're at war? You're at war with Guyana. Alright, well, you're not at war with Bolivia, who's the one with the claim on you. So actually, maybe we don't. Maybe we cancel that operation, move this army in, and next turn we can resolve the diplomatic situation, because what we'd like to do is hand over Guyana, since we inherited Brazil when they're already at war with them, hand them over to Bolivia, which now has a claim on, all of South America, which is kind of cool. The country is not in particularly good shape and needs to be doing something like that, plus we need to bring the unrest way down. But if we move into infinite money mode successfully through antimatter, nanos, and all that sort of stuff, we should be able to direct invest our way to democracy and stability in Bolivia. Although what I'm really looking forward to is what I can do once I can start dropping 200 direct invest points in like I could drop 100 points of direct investment for 36k, but admittedly that's only 2 months of production for India. Super India. So Super India now has a GDP of 222 trillion, and we've finally broken into the low inequality level. I want to get that below 2, which is, I think, the point where there are any negative results whatsoever. So I want to bring that down to 1.9. Plus, I'm helping global warming a little bit. And then we have to decide, maybe we pump knowledge and get the democracy value up to 10. That could be a good way to go. And once we've finished our military expansions, we might be able to disband some more armies for the sake of economic efficiency. I've started trimming armies from the African Union and from the Caliphate, just trimming them down to size a little bit. Economic savings are good. That said, funnily enough, the Caliphate is now producing about the science that, we're in the sort of territory of the US at the start of the game, merely with half the GDP. African Union's still very poor, very unequal, but I've just been pumping out mission control with it for the moment, because once it's absorbed, that's the much faster way to fix the democracy and the inequality. It's to absorb it into the Caliphate and then fix it when it's a combined. So maybe this is where my direct investment will go. Probably once this is unified with all of this, and with that, maybe 200 points of direct investment into knowledge to start pushing the democracy up, or 200 straight into the economy, just to juice that up and get the investment points flowing.